In this episode of the Business of E-commerce, I talk with Christina Scalera about driving traffic through content. This is the Business of E-commerce, episode 126. Today's episode is sponsored by Drip. Drip is the world's first e-commerce CRM and a tool that I personally use for email marketing and automation. Now, if you're running an e-commerce store, you need to give Drip a try, and here's why. Drip offers one-click integrations for both Shopify and Magento. There's robust segmentation, personalization, and revenue dashboards to give you an overview of how your automation emails are performing. One of my favorite features of Drip is the Visual Workflow Builder. It gives you a super easy way to build out your automation rules visually and see the entire process. It lets you get started quickly, but also build very complex automation rules. It's powerful, but also easy to learn, unlike a lot of email tools that offer the same type of automation. To get a demo of Drip today, you can go head over to drip.com/BOE. That's drip.com/BOE. Now, onto the show. Welcome to the Business of E-commerce, the show that helps e-commerce retailers start, launch, and grow their e-commerce business. I'm your host, Charles Pleski, and I'm here today with Christina Scalera. Christina is the founder of The Contract Shop, a legal template store for busy entrepreneurs. By building content, Christina has grown The Contract Shop to over 7 figures in revenue. I asked her in the show today to talk about how you can drive traffic to your e-commerce store by using content. I urge you to listen to the very end of the episode because she gives some very good hints on how you can build funnels to your e-commerce store. So let's get into the show. Hey, Christina, how you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Charles.
Yeah, awesome to chat. I love the topic of kind of using content. I know this is kind of the tried and true, but I feel like it goes out of fashion every couple of years and then comes back in.
Right?
So how long have you been doing it for, first of all?
So I started I guess you can call it e-commerce. The shippers might have a little bit of qualms with that, but I started my store on Shopify. It didn't start out on Shopify, but it started in November of 2015. So almost 5 years now. And we moved to Shopify in October of 2017. So I've been on Shopify for almost 3 years. So
Cool. Okay.
I've been doing this for a decent amount of time, I feel like. In internet land, that's a long time.
That's a very long time in internet land. So it's all digital products, right? You guys sell and promote. So it's all is it digital contracts? Like I'm assuming like a download sort of thing?
Yeah. So it's all digital. You go to the online store, you search by your niche or maybe by the type of thing that you're looking for. Obviously, we specialize in a certain aspect of the creative wedding kind of freelancer type world. That's just where I started out. I went to law school. I took a turn. I had like a quarter life crisis. I thought I might do something in the wedding industry, as a lot of 25-year-olds do. And I thought I might be a calligrapher, a graphic designer, something, wedding planning-ish. And it turns out that I didn't really fall well into those little niches, but I learned a lot about them. And I learned that they had these huge, I guess, administrative gaps in their business where they either weren't starting a legitimate business or they didn't know how, or they, were constantly anxious and stressed out because they didn't have a client contract with their wedding clients. And they didn't know what to do in the event of a cancellation, which clearly has become a very important topic in today's world. So I had this legal background. I had this like very niche knowledge of the wedding industry. And I combine those two things to create my digital products. So for example, if you're a wedding planner and you want to work with a client, but you don't want to go to law school or learn how to write a contract, you don't have to. You just go to my website, The Contract Shop, and you download the wedding planner template, fill in the blanks, send it off to a client. And the client, is no more privy to anything than you were. You just look like a hero there with a great contract that supports both of you and both of your interests. So then we really shifted to focusing in the past year or so on other digital businesses. So not just like online courses or people that are doing something similar to me, but actually, like anybody that has a website, because as you have probably seen in the last 2 years, online privacy has become a huge thing. So our best-selling product is actually our privacy policy that we're constantly updating to reflect things like the GDPR that happened on, I think it was May 25th, 2018, or the California Privacy Act that went into effect on January 1st of this year, 2020. So yeah, we're just really trying to support other types of online businesses so that they can have a legitimate privacy policy that they know they're protected, but they also don't have to spend an arm and a leg on an attorney to write who may or may not know what they're talking about. Internet law changes a lot. And if you're not paying very close attention to it, it's not like the focus of your practice. You're probably not going to know what those changes are for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's one of those
until they do a training at your local state about it. But
unless you're doing it, you probably don't know the ins and outs, I'm guessing, right? As like a small attorney. So it's probably it's probably better for everyone. And attorneys probably don't love doing it either because it's just kind of like boilerplate contract work. So they're basically just cranking out a template. It's not great for them. It's not great for the entrepreneur. It's really like it's a lose-lose. So going with just like, hey, we've kind of built this over time. It's just a lot better for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I tell everybody is like, if you go to a local attorney, they're going to be reinventing the wheel. If you use one of our templates, we've had over 6,000 people buy our products in the last 5 years. So you're going to have something that has been, I mean, depending on the template, you're going to have something that thousands of people have, or at least hundreds of people have seen, given us feedback on, and we've improved that. I mean, you just can't do that on a one-to-one basis. So it's a really cool, almost like crowdsourced, effective product, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very cool. So you've been running this for 5 years now, and has content been kind of the main driver to help you grow the business? And when you say content, are we talking like blogs? Like let's describe the actual content, and then how have you kind of used that to grow the business?
Yeah. And the great thing about this is, I mean, it's not like I'm not like Neil Patel or something where I'm like super consistent with my content. I try out different mediums. So right now, or I guess what has worked best for us consistently is blog posts with a lot of Pinterest traction or Facebook traction. We're just really in the last year starting to get into advertising. So this has all been like mostly organic growth. And a lot of content for other people's platforms. So doing webinars that are maybe not like a huge pitch at the end or no pitch at the end, just really educational webinars that put us in front of a couple thousand people that, in front of like some kind of like wedding industry, which is obviously our target demographic, are people in the creative, freelance, wedding industries. So just really providing a lot of valuable content, mostly through blogging. And then I would say also through guest blogging and then through guest webinars and presentations is how we've grown our audience. And it's happened really nicely and organically. So that's the content that we're working with. And then we're moving into like video, trying to repurpose that into more like blogish posts, things like that. But yeah, it's a great organic driver of traffic to this day.
How do you feel about, because you hear this when people are first getting started, it's always kind of this recommendation, like you should use content. It's, it's free. And it's always like, well, is it free? Right? Because you could actually do a lot of work to generate content, like we're doing now. But
sure.
When you kind of start, it feels like this like snowball that starts off so slow. You publish your first blog post and you have to like email like your mother and be like, hey, can you go read this? And like, I got a hit. And you see a lot of people kind of just getting, I don't know, a little unhappy about it. I don't know the right word at the very beginning, just because you look and you're like, this blog has had like 10 hits. I spent 5 hours in this post. And until you really have that following, it's just such a slow uphill slog. What do you say to people kind of getting started, how to kind of get over that hump when you actually start to say, this is worth it?
I always encourage people to reach out to someone who's a little bit further along than you in the industry. Or, obviously someone who also markets to the same demographic as you or provides content to the same demographic that you're trying to reach with your products. Anytime you can offer content to those platforms, especially if it's like really, really dense, juicy content that's going to be super helpful for their audience. And it just has maybe a couple links back to like a content upgrade or a funnel or something like that for you. So they're getting content, which, as you know, it can be kind of like a pain in the butt to think of content topics or to produce content. Like sometimes you just want to break. And so if you're showing up and you're ready to give a lot to their audience, provide a really good piece of content or a good content video, like whatever your preferred medium is. If you're willing to do that for them, take that little bit of content off their plate for that week. Now they have a newsletter, they have a blog post, they have a video, whatever written for that week done for them. And it just has a little plug back to your stuff. A lot of people are very willing to feature that, I've found. So I would not try to build it on. I like the fact that you're continuing to create content for your own platform. One, so that you can see what people like and create more of that and do less of what they don't like. And two, so that you're creating that organic search traffic. But if you want to maybe feel less overwhelmed, maybe feel a little more motivated, a little more encouraged, it definitely is a good idea to get out in front of someone else's audience, someone who's already built an audience that reaches the same people that you're trying to sell to.
Yeah. And I think having your own site kind of acts as a almost a resume of sorts, right? Of saying, because you get these emails all the time. Once you kind of have a blog or any sort of platform, people want to promote on your platform, and you go and look at those people pretty quickly, and you'll see their blog and kind of use that as look at the quality. So even if not that many people are reading it, those people that you're contacting, they're the ones going to be looking at your content just to see the quality of it. The structure, does it even match the voice? And I've noticed that's kind of a bigger deal than people give it credit for. It's almost your resume at that point.
Yeah. And for me, what I've done with the contract shop too is I've created a lot of like FAQ posts that are helpful for us because we can hand them out in our customer support when someone's like, oh, is this right for me? Should I do this? What comes with this? Da, 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 right? We have like blog posts about all that now instead of just having like a boring FAQ that they don't want to read. It's actually, like the 5 things you need to know about blah, blah, blah. And number 4 is their question that they need answered. So in our customer support, we can write back and say, this is the answer to your question. And by the way, here's a blog post that talks more about this. Check out, number 4 on this blog post. And then the rest of the blog post obviously is also helpful for them. So then they're like, wow, like what a great value. Like, thanks so much for helping me out. You really gave you really cared.
Well, you're trying to give away something
that
for free.
Also is a helpful way.
You're trying to give away something for free,
yeah,
right? That's a whole goal.
But you may,
yeah,
I think if you can make, if you can make your FAQs a little more fun, like if you always get a question like, is free shipping included, right? Like instead of just always writing back like, yes, we include free shipping for orders over $50. You could talk about like the benefits of getting your product today, and then like talk about the different shipping speeds for your store or something. And like I said, like number 3 is like free shipping is always included on orders at our store over $50. Like click here to make your order today. So yeah, you can just really help yourself, I feel like a lot, by making the FAQs and the questions that you get a little bit more fun and engaging for people to read about. And then they're like excited to buy your product and they're excited about your brand instead of, just writing another blog post about like why your product is so great. They don't care about that. They care about like, how does it compare to this? Or how does it, like how fast can they get it? What are the benefits of your product versus your competitors? So if you can just create that juicy content that they're looking for, kind of the same content that you probably would have created, but just like spice it up a little bit, it becomes this like secondary FAQ that also is like a front end FAQ. So you're already kind of training people as they get into your funnel and as they purchase your products.
Yeah. And that's one of those things. So I've had Leanna Patch on here from Punchline Copy, and they have that. Yeah. She has that voice, right? It's witty and funny and creative, and just it's her voice when you're reading it. And then also you kind of mentioned Neil Patel, have him on here too. if you look at his content, it's very different, very prescriptive, right? Like, here are the steps, here's what you must do. Very different, but they'll both have their voice, and I feel like they stay consistent, and that's what
Yes.
works for them. It's kind of one of the biggest things.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny, I've worked a lot with Liana at Punchline. She's written quite a few of our product descriptions and sales pages and things like that.
Small world.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a small world. She's awesome. But yeah, so I like what you're saying about the consistency here. And I think a lot of people are afraid to get into content because they're like, oh, I don't have that voice, or I'm not a good writer, or I'm not good on video, or whatever. But like, do you think anybody is when they get started? No, like you should see that. Well, you shouldn't see. The first blog post that I wrote back when I had a Squarespace shop, they were terrible. I mean, they were boring. They, were short. I'm a big fan of like longer form content. They were just really kind of all over the place. They were really emotional and like feely, and, like this is how I felt, and kind of like a journal type thing. And, if you look at my posts today, we have pretty much the same formula for every single blog post that I write, which is like some kind of catchy headline, usually with an odd number or a how-to in it. And then a little tiny story, like 2 to 3 sentences is what kicks the blog post off. And then, like you said, we have that prescriptive formula. So it's like the 3 things or the 5 things, the 11 ways you never expected, whatever. And then we wrap it up with a little review. And then throughout the blog post, there's at least 3 calls to action, usually some kind of graphic. I usually include just like plain hyperlink text, but we at least have like 3 calls to action to get into one of our funnels. And it's like the same funnel throughout usually. Wrap it up with the review, a question at the end, maybe, asking for comments. Blog comments aren't really super popular anymore. I think most people are on Instagram and Facebook for that kind of stuff. But we still ask the question regardless. And then we can copy and paste that whole thing, put it into a newsletter, send it out. And we've created, 2 things that are promoting the store right there. And then, if I were more consistent and better about it, I would probably just copy and paste it into Instagram. Actually, you're making me want to do this today. I would just copy and paste different like paragraphs or, prescriptions, the steps or whatever that I'm giving away in the blog posts, connect that to a picture. And now we have Instagram content for a week. So I think it's really easy to repurpose if you have that like foundational piece. But like right now, like you don't even have to be perfect at it. I mean, right now I'm only using a blog post and a newsletter every week. I could be doing so much more as far as the marketing goes, and, retargeting people to the blog posts and things like that. And we're not, and we're still getting a decent amount of traffic and new people subscribing, things like that. So
I actually have a tip. Before I ask you the question, I do have a tip on the Instagram. What we do is for everyone's listening, we build quote cards on a quote someone said from somewhere, post that on Instagram. The issue with Instagram is you can't post a link straight back to that article. So you have to do it up in the profile to the main blog. But if you just added up those quote cards, it definitely drives a lot of traffic, which has been kind of a little side note tip there that I found. But actually,
that's great.
Yeah, well, it helps. And that's kind of, so going right into the next question, right? How do you promote the content? Because you mentioned a newsletter, but is that all you do, or are you trying to put it in the different social channels? Are you running paid? Like, how are you actually getting eyeballs to this other than organic?
Yeah. So what we'll usually do, so we have like cold traffic funnels that are happening all the time. So we're constantly getting new traffic in to those funnels. And so what we'll do is we'll put the blog post, like send it out to the newsletter, see, what people are interested in the blog posts that do really well, we will give them to we have an affiliate program at the contract shop. So we'll give them to our affiliates and say, hey, this is doing really well. Why don't you share this on, like copy and paste this into your Instagram, your feed, whatever. Because, as soon as someone lands on our blog, they're cookied with that affiliate's link. So then the affiliate gets the commission, So our affiliates are helpful there. And then the other thing that's helpful is the blog posts that do really well. I mean, there's no reason why you have to have like a whole funnel and like webinar or presentation or whatever for Facebook ads. Like you can run Facebook ads right to those well-performing blog posts and, just pop up in people's feeds or, show up on LinkedIn, like wherever you think your people might be. And so you can promote that as if it's like a landing page for a webinar or something, especially when it has the calls to action. So yeah, that's basically what we're doing to get new people onto those blog posts, onto those pages. And then because we honestly, we haven't even touched Pinterest in about a year, but because we set Pinterest up so well and did it for so long, we still have a decent amount of traffic that's coming from Pinterest. So we might just throw a couple pins up or something, and start seeing a lot of traffic there to the new posts that we're putting up. Again, like I run a really, really lean team. So we just try to focus on the blog posts that do well. The ones that don't do as well, we don't put all our resources and focus and energy behind those because we just don't have the capacity to do that. So again, like I feel like my whole like encouragement to everybody is you don't have to have this perfect system. You don't have to have like this whole thing set up. You can just do what you can with what you have, and you're still going to see increased results. And the great thing about content is you can always come back to it too. Like you can always do like a roundup newsletter later. That's what we did with a lot of our popular content is we added, so we have a welcome sequence that kind of invites them to learn more about the contract shop, learn more about the templates, that kind of thing. So after they're through their initial like funnel with us, as a cold subscriber, or, you know, say someone that came over from an affiliate or something, then they go through this welcome sequence. And so what we've done with our well-performing posts is we've added those as like here's the top 5 posts that you want to see into the welcome sequence. So you can always repurpose the content in that way. Sometimes, you know, I'm like, I don't want to write a newsletter this week. So I just go back through the blog posts and I pull something that did decently well, copy and paste that, and I send it out to all my subscribers again. And then they click through to the links to the blog post. They share those, they, you know, engage with those. So it really is something that you don't have to create a lot of content for, and you can repurpose over and over. And that's what I would encourage more people to do instead of like constantly creating content actually.
Yeah, I think a lot of people start off and think they have to be this content generation machine, and it sounds good for about like 2 to 3 weeks, and then you just get tired or run out of ideas, or life gets in the way, and then it just kind of all falls off the bandwagon. So I like the idea of the more you can repurpose, and just having that backlog helps, because then you just can always look back, pull something out, or like you said, every article you're probably referring to past articles, and that's a great way of using the new content to promote the old. So I like that. You mentioned
and Shopify does a good job of this because they'll tell you, oh, sorry. Yeah, Shopify tells us like, hey, everybody that read this article reads this article too. So then we link to those within each other.
Yeah, that's a good, kind of that cross. Basically, so you're using the new articles to promote the old ones. You're basically cross promoting the same way you do with a product, but with the content, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You said you had a very lean team. What is the team structure? Because I think a lot of people are you trying to do it all yourself? Do you have someone helping on the promotion side, on the, technical side? Like, what do you do and what do you have help with?
Yeah, sure. So I have 4 contractors. So it's myself and 4 contractors. I've had up to 18. I'm down to 4 now. So we have one of my gals is in charge of marketing. So she does all our Facebook ads, and she kind of looks at what's performing well, what we could possibly do as a launch, that kind of thing. She supports me through that. The other gal is in charge of all my operations. So she does a really great job just keeping us on track with projects, not letting me get too far ahead of myself by like getting new things in the pipeline, like really focusing on what is working and doing more of that. And then we have our customer support. So she helps out in the inbox as we get customer support emails. And then when we do our big sales twice a year, she also supports a little bit through there, helps out with the chat, any inquiries coming through there. And then the last person is my graphic designer. So the graphic designer is, obviously she does all the design. She helps out with the product description pages. We hire other people like on an as needed basis. I work with Kurt Elster a lot on on my website development. So, but yeah, so I work with a pretty lean team, and most people are on demand. Like if we need extra help during a launch or something like that, then we'll go out and hire specifically for that need. But on payroll like every single month are those 4 people. And it seems to work really well.
Very cool.
And then obviously we have our affiliates. So, but I would, they don't, they don't like work for me. They're just.
Kurt made it to the Shopify investor newsletter this month. I just
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's also been a guest on the show as well. I saw it.
Yeah.
Shopify, they were doing the conference and his face is in there, so pretty cool.
Yes. They had to move it all virtual.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have. So then, are you primarily the chief kind of content creator or writer, kind of doing the idea creation, and everyone else kind of just supporting you in that process?
Yeah, I create all of our content, whether it's in a product or, like sometimes we will bring in contractors to help us develop things further. Like we brought in Punchline Copy to help us, punch up our sales pages and things like that. But yeah, so for the most part, I'm the one who's writing the sales pages. I'm the one who's writing the blog posts. I'm the one who's writing the content that goes inside the courses or the products or whatever it might be. So kind of 3 very distinct areas of content creation. You have to put on like little different hats for each of those because conversion copy is very different than say, like educational content that you're trying to teach someone how to do something. So yeah, that is what I do in my company is a lot of figuring out where we're headed and then also creating those products and then letting everybody else support me once those ideas are a little bit more solid.
Gotcha. So you mentioned a funnel a lot, and kind of the whole marketing funnel and the general, right? Top of the funnel, middle, bottom. People get introduced to your content and then they check out at some point. How do you link up that top of the funnel content to actually get them into the rest as buyers? So, they come in there in the list of 10 best ways to do X, but now how do you actually kind of nudge them over to say, oh, by the way, we have X over here? Is there any sort of tricks to doing that piece of it?
I mean, it's going to be so different for every single business. It's honestly, funnels are like something that are, I don't want to say they're new because I've known about funnels and, the whole funnel sphere for a long time. We basically try to give people the encouragement and the permission that they would need prior to purchasing the product. So like what is blocking their mindset, or, like what are they telling themselves that is creating some kind of fear or a lack of permission in their mind or something like that before they get to our product, and clearing those out of the way with the free products or like the low tripwire type, $7 products, something like that. So we try to give them, it's almost like permission-based marketing, like where we're trying to give them permission to do something. And then once they have that permission, now they need our product. So then they're making the purchase. So that's what I would say. Like, for example, we have our rock solid contract checklist. This is pretty basic. This is like our oldest funnel. Basically, they go to rocksolidcontract.com, they download the checklist, they get to go through and they can compare their current client contract against our checklist, and they're likely to see gaps or, like things that are missing. Or, they download our checklist and they're like, oh, hey, I actually really don't know anything about, I call it Frankensteining your contract together. Like I really don't know anything about piecing a contract together from all over Google. So I'm just going to go through this funnel, and we have a couple like offers in there for them that help to push them over the edge, because it's like, oh, I need this thing now. I realized how much I need it because I went through this checklist, and then the next day, like, wow, okay, there's this extra offer in here for the exact product I needed. How convenient. So I think it's just a matter of doing a lot of experimentation. I think that's where people, including myself, get really discouraged using funnels and, content to generate leads to those funnels, is because like there's things that aren't linking up. So we just launched a new funnel last week, for example, and like nobody's purchasing the upsell. We've had a couple purchases, but like the overwhelming majority aren't purchasing. And we're like, okay, this isn't like a big price jump. So what is going on? Where is like the disconnect?
What is that funnel?
And so it's just going to be an experiment.
As an example?
It's called LawlesstoFlawless. Yeah, sure. it might be at LawlesstoFlawless.com. So, going from a business that doesn't have any kind of like legal administrative stuff set up at all, getting one of our signature courses that we used to sell for $500 for $14. So, cooking them, and then, they're not able to purchase for $14 forever. It's just like this very short-term thing for like very cold new subscribers. So they can purchase Lawless to Flawless, and then we have an upsell into exactly how to build a business, because they're at the very beginning stages. So they get this like behind the scenes, these 3 different kits about how, like, 3 different ways that they could build their business potentially and reach different people. So that's the funnel that we just launched. And then obviously they get into our welcome sequence after that. But it's there's a disconnect there. And, just to be totally candid, it's a lot of experimenting to figure out like why, because the front end product sells really well, but the back end product isn't selling as well.
So on that, so you mentioned Lawless, it's a whole separate domain, right? So how, I guess for a 2-part question, why do you create different domains for each one? And then are you driving traffic from the main domain out to those? Like, how do you actually, or is each one kind of its own isolated thing that you're promoting and running in its own world?
Yeah, I mean, ideally they would all be through the contract shop. The problem though is it's just so dang easy to build sales pages and upsells and one-click upsells and landing pages off of Shopify. So when we're testing things, we're not building them on Shopify, because that takes, like, there's just no good, not that I know of, but we just haven't really found a landing page builder that's as effective as, say, ClickFunnels, to get something up and going and working consistently, like really quickly. So if we know something works, then yeah, absolutely, we're moving it back to our site so that we can track it, have all the analytics, metrics, et cetera, everything there, because that's the best case scenario. But the problem is it's just not right now. There's like this huge gap in the marketplace for like an effective landing page builder on Shopify that has like one-click upsells and all this other stuff. So it just, I feel like the software on each platform is very different and accomplishes very different things. Obviously, like, to have a shop on ClickFunnels would be a nightmare. To have like it like there would be so many broken links and so many problems. But to have like a funnel, it just doesn't work for us and the lean team that I have. If I had like unlimited funds to just like develop things, and I'm like, I think this is going to work, then yeah, sure, I would build a landing page on Shopify, have everything through there. But yeah, so we really operate them kind of like in an isolated mode until we can test them enough and see if they're working, because the changes and the things that you can do on ClickFunnels are just so much more dynamic than what's available on Shopify right now. Even with like, there's a couple landing page builders we've checked out, and it's just basically what we've decided is like, when something works, we're just going to have our graphic designer, tweak it a little bit, and then have Kurt or EtherCycle code it as a custom page on Shopify, because the landing pages just don't, they don't work.
But then, so when you develop these pages, so how do you actually get folks from the contract shop over to these new sites, or what is like the link between them? Like, how do you start from day one?
No, those are typically retargeting if
Okay.
we need to. Typically, these are for cold traffic. So this is to generate new traffic to the contract shop.
Cold paid. So you're generating to the LawlesstoFlawless example.
Traffic.
You're running cold traffic to that.
Correct. And we try to entice our current subscribers and current readers to go to those pages as well, through like graphics like, hey, wouldn't you like to get your business all buttoned up? Like, that's a graphic in the middle of a blog post, and it leads to the LawlesstoFlawless site, where they can upgrade for a $14 product. So there is some organic traffic that's coming. But typically we're using funnels to get cold leads into our site.
So you have a few different ways of kind of running traffic into these sites, right? So you have so you said the newsletter, the main blog, paid, and then what else was there? There's several different methods.
Affiliates and guest posting, guest webinars, things like that. So, kind of collaborative efforts for content.
Do you have one that kind of works, that's kind of like your go-to way of doing it? Or is it just test and different ones work at different kind of audiences?
Honestly, and it gets a little exhausting, but definitely the collaborative content is the most effective by far. But it can get a little exhausting, especially when it's such a small team.
How so? The
It gets a
collaborative?
little. You have to find people to reach out to. We're always like tweaking the presentations for them, or I'm like custom writing a blog post for their audience so that it's new content. So it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. But it also is the most effective for getting in front of a totally new audience. So we've kind of scaled back on that a little bit because our affiliate program's done really well in the last like 2 years. So people are a little bit more encouraged to create some of their own content. They're doing some of that collaborative content for us in a way, because even though we're not the ones creating the content anymore, it's still their audience who's getting exposed to us, which is the whole goal of that collaborative content anyway. So we've been able to scale back a little bit on that without losing the benefit with the affiliate program. But yeah, for sure. If you could get out there and I know Russell Brunson at ClickFunnels talks about this all the time, but like if you could get out there and do a webinar in front of someone else's audience every week, there's no way you couldn't be driving traffic back to your site every single week. That's, new, fresh, cold leads that haven't heard of you before, haven't made a purchase yet, and are eager and willing to do so. So yeah, I would say that collaborative content is like definitely where you get the most bang for your buck, but everything's a trade-off. And when you do that collaborative content, obviously it's someone else's audience, and I take that really seriously, which is why I probably do more than I should. I put a little more pressure on myself, but I don't want to under-deliver to someone else's audience because they have given me the privilege of being there. So I really go above and beyond with that, and that's why I think it's a little exhausting, and why it's not that it's not sustainable. It's just that you have to be prepared for the work that's involved.
I see. Okay, so you're saying you launch a site, LawlesstoFlawless.com, and you have other folks that have promoted that you've worked with before, most likely. So I'm guessing it's not just all cold every time. So you say, hey, you published an article for us 6 months ago. We just launched this new site. We have this article that would probably do well with your audience on making your business more streamlined, right? And they have a blog about that. So you write that article up for their audience, drop a link to LawlesstoFlawless, and that's how you're driving a lot of content traffic there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. And you'd say that's kind of the biggest driver of kind of when you're standing up these new sites?
No, I think our organic search traffic is I know from the analytics, it's still our biggest driver. Pinterest and organic search traffic is still our biggest driver of content.
Interesting.
Or of traffic. Yeah.
How long does it take to get the organic going though? So when you build this new site, if you just create it, if it's like new this month, like how long does that organic engine take to get going?
Well, the organic traffic is coming from the contract shop.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. So it's like people that are searching for something on the internet and they're finding our blog post as the answer.
And you're linking so you're using the contract shop. So you've built up an audience there. You've built up the organic there. And now you can basically point that to whatever sales funnel you want. So these separate sites are sales funnels. The contract shop is the engine, the top of the funnel engine.
Yes. In some ways, or Facebook paid traffic, cold audiences are also pushed into the funnels. Yeah.
So if you want it, so if somebody's doing very well,
one or the other.
Okay. So, but you can use organic to even test it, right? And if someone's doing well, then try some paid and see if you can go up a little more.
Yep. Exactly.
Very cool. Okay. I think this is a setup.
Yeah. So for example,
copy in their own business, because it sounds actually pretty effective.
Yeah. And again, it's a lot of focusing on like the blog posts that do really well. So how do you create more effective calls to action that look, organic, that look fun? It helps that obviously our blog doesn't have like annoying pop-up ads and, like all this crazy stuff happening that it's because I'm not using the blog like as a blog, right? Like there's like blogs that sell stuff on them. And then there's like online stores that have blogs that teach people how to use the product better, or like how to do something in their life better that they then need the product. So that's how the latter is how I'm using the blog. And then we're plugging our funnels through there so that they can be nurtured further through our brand and get to know us better, get to experience some of our products at like a discounted, like a deeply discounted price, and just kind of start to see like this is definitely the company for them to help them through this like legal aspect that they need help with. So earning their trust in different ways through a lot of different kinds of content. But yeah, focusing definitely on the blog posts that are getting the most organic reach. And then, you know, like I said, you can put some paid traffic behind that on Facebook or Google or whatever, so that you're showing up in those search results for people. And, you know, you are literally the answer to their questions.
Very cool. I like that a lot. It sounds like a great strategy. So I want to be respectful of your time, though. That's a good tip. So any kind of last words of advice or any links people can find you or see your latest funnel?
Yeah, for sure. Just come to thecontractshop.com. Check it out. We've got some really awesome things available for people just through there. If they want just great content, the blog's there. If you don't know what kind of content you want, just go to thecontractshop.com and we'll retarget you with something that we think you'll want. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the best place to go is just thecontractshop.com. Check it all out. And you know, if you want to get like a how to get your LLC, whatever, you can go to LawlesstoFlawless.com. But yeah, those are the best places to check out what we're doing and see how things are operating. And you know, my best piece of advice that I could possibly give anybody listening is just do something. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. There doesn't have to be a system. It doesn't have to be like this long, strategic, well mapped out thing. It could just be, you know, you get started and you write a blog post and you've never done that before, and you have your first blog post up, because you got to get started somewhere. And every single time you do it, you're going to get better and better. And, you know, start to see how these things could connect for you, and start to see the topics that you could talk about that your audience is really interested in hearing. So you just literally have to do something. It doesn't have to be perfect, just something is done.
Awesome. That's great advice. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. So I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate being here.